Commander Deho stood in the center of the Galactic Assembly Hall and felt thousands of alien eyes watching him. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from 200 different species. Crystal walls stretched up toward a dome that showed the stars beyond. Every seat was filled today. Everyone wanted to see this moment. 4,000 years. That was how long humanity had been locked away in their own solar system. 4,000 years since the barrier went up around Earth's sun. 4,000 years since humans had been allowed to leave their home. Daiho was the first human to stand here in all that time. He wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons. His black hair was cut short and neat. He looked young, maybe 30 years old, but his eyes seemed much older. When he looked at the alien counselors, some of them looked away. Counselor Vexthor rose from his seat. He was tall and covered in silver scales that caught the light. His species, the Kryloth, had been the ones who built the barrier around Earth. "The Assembly has made its decision," Vexthor announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "The quarantine of the human species will end today. However, humanity will not be granted membership in the Assembly. Your system contains resources we need. You will submit to Assembly authority. You will open your worlds to our supervision. This is not negotiable." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some aliens looked satisfied. Others seemed nervous. A few even looked sad. Ambassador Jiwan sat in the human delegation area below Deho. She was an older woman with gray streaking through her hair. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair. She had spent 20 years negotiating for this meeting, hoping for peace. Now she realized the Assembly had never intended to offer it. Daiho smiled. It was not a happy smile. "You should have left us alone," he said quietly. But in the vast chamber, everyone heard him perfectly. Vexthor's scales rippled with what might have been anger. "You have no choice, human. We know your situation. 4,000 years of isolation. Your population trapped on one planet, maybe a few stations and colonies in your system. You are alone. We are 200 species with millions of ships. Accept our terms or be destroyed." "Destroyed," Deho repeated, as if tasting the word. "You tried that once before. Do you remember? 4,000 years ago when you first met us. You attacked our colony ships. You killed 3 million humans who were just trying to find new homes. We fought back, and we hurt you. We hurt you so badly that your solution was to lock us away forever and hope we would just stop. You were dangerous," another counselor called out. "Violent, expanding too fast, unwilling to follow galactic law." "We were young," Deho said. "We made mistakes, but we learned from them." His smile grew wider. "We learned so much." Vexthor pressed a button on his control panel. "The barrier is being deactivated now. Our fleet is ready. You have 1 hour to transmit your surrender, or we will enter your system and take what we need by force." Daiho nodded slowly. 1 hour. Very well." He touched a device on his wrist. "Admiral Suman, they are coming. Show them what we have been doing for 4,000 years." In orbit around Earth, invisible to the Assembly's long-range sensors, thousands of human ships suddenly appeared. They had been hiding behind advanced stealth fields, waiting. The moment Deho gave the signal, every ship dropped its camouflage at once. The Assembly fleet had been stationed just outside the barrier, ready to invade. 5,000 ships, they thought, would be more than enough to handle whatever primitive forces humanity had managed to build during their isolation. They were not prepared for what they saw. Admiral Suman sat in the command chair of the Eternal Dawn, humanity's flagship. She was a woman who appeared to be in her 40s, with sharp eyes and short black hair. In reality, she was much older than she looked. Much, much older. "Count?" she asked her tactical officer. 4,732 capital ships now visible, Admiral," Captain Hyunwoo reported. He was young, barely 25, and this was his first real combat assignment. His hands shook slightly as he read the displays. 300 orbital defense platforms, 62 mobile fortresses, and the lunar station is fully operational. Suman leaned back in her chair. Open a channel to the assembly fleet. A moment later, the face of a Kryloth admiral appeared on the screen. He looked shocked. This is impossible. Where did you get all these ships? The barrier was monitored constantly. Nothing this large could have been built without us detecting it. You monitored the barrier, Suman agreed, but you forgot that space is very, very large. And we had 4,000 years to prepare. She gestured to her tactical display. Every ship you see was built in the outer reaches of our system, beyond Neptune, beyond where your sensors could reach. We mined the asteroids. We colonized the moons. We built factories in the Oort cloud where you never thought to look. The alien admiral's scales turned a darker color. Even so, you are trapped in one system. We control the galaxy. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Merciful, Suman repeated. Like you were merciful 4,000 years ago? She touched another control. Let me show you something else. On every display throughout the assembly fleet, a star map appeared. It showed the galaxy with thousands of markers scattered across hundreds of light years. Each marker represented a human presence. Generation ships, Suman explained. We launched them 2,000 years ago. Slow ships, moving at a fraction of light speed, staying quiet and dark. They have been traveling to nearby stars for centuries, planting colonies, building stations, staying hidden. She smiled. We are already out here, Admiral. We have been among you for a very long time. Back in the assembly hall, chaos erupted. Counselors were shouting, demanding information, checking their own reports. Vex Thor stood frozen, staring at the data streaming across his screens. Daiho walked slowly toward the exit. Ambassador Jiwon hurried to join him. You knew, she whispered. You knew they would do this, that they would never offer real peace. We hoped for peace, Daiho said quietly. We genuinely did. But hope is not a strategy, so we prepared for war. Just in case. Will there be war? Jiwon asked. Her voice shook. Daiho looked back at the assembly chamber. Vex Thor was staring at him with hatred in his eyes. Other counselors looked terrified. A few looked calculating, already wondering how to turn this situation to their advantage. That depends on them, Daiho said. We will defend ourselves. We will not be enslaved. We will not be destroyed. But we do not want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to live our lives. He paused. Unfortunately, I do not think they will allow that. As if to confirm his words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The assembly fleet was advancing. They had decided to attack. Suman watched the enemy ships move into formation. Weapons status? She asked. All ships reporting ready, Hyunwoo said. Defensive platforms charged. Lunar arrays standing by. Hold fire until they cross the line, Suman ordered. I want every species in the galaxy to see who shoots first. The assembly fleet crossed into Earth's solar system. 1,000 ships in the first wave, weapons hot, shields raised. They expected resistance. They expected a fight. They did not expect what happened next. Every human ship vanished. The assembly fleet found itself suddenly alone in empty space. Their sensors showed nothing. No ships, no stations, nothing. Then the trap closed. Human vessels reappeared behind them, below them, above them, in every direction at once. They had not fled. They had simply moved, faster than the alien sensors could track, repositioning for the perfect ambush. Suman gave the order. Fire! The battle for Earth had begun, but it would not last long. And when it was over, the galaxy would never be the same again. The assembly ships burned, not all of them and not quickly, but enough to send a message. Human weapons cut through their shields like they were made of paper. Energy beams that bent space itself. Missiles that phased through armor before exploding inside. Fighters that moved so fast they seemed to teleport. Captain Hyun-woo watched his tactical display in amazement. He had trained for this his entire life, studied every simulation, practiced every scenario. But seeing it happen in reality was different. The enemy fleet was breaking apart, ships trying desperately to retreat or regroup. Human forces flowed around them like water, always in the right position, always one step ahead. "How are we doing this?" he whispered. Admiral Suman heard him. She was monitoring everything from her command chair, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Because we have been preparing for this exact moment for 4,000 years, she said, "every single day, every single hour. While they grew comfortable and lazy, we grew stronger and smarter." She pulled up a display showing Earth's timeline since the barrier went up. "Let me show you how we got here." The scene shifted. Suman's voice narrated what Hyun-woo was seeing, but her mind drifted back to her own memories. She had been there for much of it. Not continuously, but she remembered. Year 100 of isolation. Earth was still recovering from the first contact war. Cities had been rebuilt. The population was growing again, but humanity was trapped, the barrier shimmering at the edge of their solar system like a prison wall. Dr. Minji stood before the United Earth Council with a proposal. She was young then, barely 30, with bright eyes full of determination. "They have trapped us here," she told the council. "But they have also given us something valuable, time and privacy. The galaxy banned certain technologies as too dangerous. Artificial intelligence, genetic modification, matter replication, quantum computing, reality manipulation. They limited themselves because they were afraid." "And you want us to pursue these forbidden technologies?" one counselor asked nervously. "I want us to survive," Minji replied. "If the barrier ever falls, they will come for us. We need to be ready. We need to be stronger than they can imagine." She smiled. "Let's turn this prison into a laboratory." Project Prometheus began that year. Thousands of scientists working in secret labs across Earth and Mars. They started with small steps: better computers, faster ships, stronger materials. But each breakthrough led to bigger ones. By year 500, humans had colonized every major body in the solar system: Europa, Titan, Ganymede, even Mercury, protected by massive solar shields. Millions of people living and working throughout Earth's system, all united by one goal: prepare for the day the barrier would fall. By year 1000, the first-generation ships were ready. Massive vessels designed to travel for centuries, carrying thousands of people in suspended animation. They were launched in secret, slipping through weak points in the barrier that the aliens never bothered to guard. After all, who would try to leave in slow ships that would take hundreds of years to reach anywhere? Captain Young-soo commanded one of those generation ships. He had been born on the voyage, grown up among the stars, and now, 3,000 years later, his ship was returning to Earth. He was old, his body kept alive by advanced medicine that the original crew could never have imagined. "We have been out there," Young-soo reported to Admiral Suman when his ship rejoined the Earth fleet. 47 star systems, hidden colonies on planets they never explored. We stayed quiet, stayed dark, built our strength in the shadows." Suman nodded. She had been waiting for this report for a very long time, longer than most people could understand. The tactical display snapped back to the present. An assembly cruiser was trying to ram one of the human frigates. The frigate simply phased out of existence, passing through the cruiser like a ghost, then reappearing behind it and firing a single shot that disabled its engines. "Phase shift technology," Suman explained to Hyun-woo. "Year 2800, Dr. Minji's team finally cracked it. The ability to shift matter slightly out of normal space. It costs enormous energy, but it makes us nearly impossible to hit." Another memory surfaced. Year 3200. General Tai Jin presenting his plan to the Earth Defense Council. He was a hard man, scarred from the colony wars in the outer system. "We need to think deeper," he told them. "Longer. We need weapons and defenses that can last centuries. We need soldiers who can fight forever." That was when the Deep Dark Initiative began. Massive facilities built in the Oort cloud, so far from the sun that they were invisible against the black of space. Factories that ran themselves with advanced AI. Shipyards that could build fleets without human supervision. Defense platforms that would wait silently for thousands of years, then activate when called. And something else. Something that changed everything. "The Eternal Project," Suman said softly, remembering. "Year 4200. That was when everything changed." Hyunwoo glanced at her. He had heard rumors about the Eternals, but never confirmed facts. "Is it true, Admiral? Can you really transfer your consciousness?" Suman smiled. It was a sad smile. "I volunteered to be the first," she said. "I was getting old. My body was failing. They offered me a choice: die and be replaced by the next generation, or live and serve forever." She looked at her hands. They appeared young and strong, but she had worn many bodies over the centuries. "I chose to live. So did thousands of others. We became the Eternals, commanders and scientists and engineers who never die, who accumulate centuries of experience." "Does it hurt?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. "Every single time," Suman admitted. "Dying and being reborn in a new clone body. You never get used to it. But it was necessary. We needed institutional memory. We needed people who could plan across centuries, not just decades." The battle continued around them. The assembly fleet was in full retreat now, what remained of it. They had lost a third of their ships in less than an hour. Human forces pursued them carefully, not trying to destroy them all, just driving them back. "Why are we letting them go?" Hyunwoo asked. "Because we need them to report back," Suman said. "We need the galaxy to know what happened here. If we destroy them all, the assembly will just send more fleets. But if survivors return with tales of humanity's power, maybe others will think twice." A communication came through from Commander Daeho. He was still at the assembly station, now under human protection. "Admiral, we have a situation. The assembly has accessed their old archives. They found something." "What?" Suman asked. Daeho's face was grim. "The real reason they quarantined us. There was a classified report written by their analysts after the First Contact War. It predicted everything. It said that if humanity was given time and motivation, we would become the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because we were evil, but because we adapt faster than anyone else. We improve. We evolve. They quarantined us not because of what we were, but because of what we could become." Suman absorbed this. So they knew. They always knew. Yes, and they did it anyway. They trapped us, thinking the barrier would hold forever. Daeho paused. They were wrong. And now they are paying for that mistake. Admiral Jamin's voice crackled over the command channel. He was leading the Oort fleet, the massive force that had been hidden in the outer reaches of the solar system. "Admiral Suman, we are receiving reports from our colonies. Assembly forces are moving toward several of our hidden outposts. They are trying to strike back while our main fleet is engaged here." Suman brought up a galaxy map. Red markers showed assembly ships moving toward suspected human colonies. "They are trying to threaten our civilians," she said. "Trying to force us to negotiate." "What are your orders?" Jamin asked. Suman was quiet for a moment. This was the choice she had known was coming. Stay defensive and let the assembly dictate the terms of engagement, or go on the offensive and show the galaxy that humanity would not be bullied. "Deploy the Oort fleet," she ordered. "Protect our colonies, and Jamin, show them what the Deep Dark Initiative built. Show them what happens when you give humans 4,000 years to prepare. Across the galaxy, hidden human ships activated. Colonies that the Assembly thought were easy targets suddenly revealed defensive systems that rivaled Earth's own. Stealth ships emerged from the black of space to ambush Assembly forces. Weapons that had been waiting silently for centuries powered up and fired. Back on Earth, people watched the battles on their screens. Some cheered, some cried. Many just felt numb. This was what 4,000 years of preparation had built, a military force that could fight the entire galaxy. But watching from her small apartment in Seoul, an old woman named Yoonji felt only sadness. She was one of the last pures, humans who had refused all genetic modification, all enhancement, all augmentation. She watched Admiral Suman on the screen, knowing that the woman had died and been reborn dozens of times. She watched soldiers moving faster than human eyes could follow, their bodies enhanced beyond recognition. "Are we still human?" Yoonji whispered to herself. "Or did we become something else to survive?" It was a question that would haunt humanity for a very long time. The war spread like fire across the galaxy. Within 2 weeks, battles were happening in 50 different star systems. The Assembly had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Counselor Vexthor stood in his command center on the Kryloth homeworld, watching reports flood in. Everyone brought worse news. "How?" he demanded. "How are they doing this? They were trapped in one system for 4,000 years. His intelligence officer, a younger Kryloth named Vexjin, pulled up a holographic display. "Sir, we have confirmed at least 200 hidden human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Some of them have been there for over 1,000 years. They have been living among us, watching us, learning everything about us." Living among us? Vexthor's scales darkened with rage. "You mean they have spies?" "Not just spies, sir." Vexjin looked uncomfortable. "Some of them have been integrated into our societies for centuries. We found one in your own advisory council." The door to the command center opened. A woman walked in, escorted by guards. She looked human, middle-aged, with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore the robes of a senior counselor advisor. "Sora," Vexthor said, his voice cold. "I trusted you for 800 years. Sora nodded. "And I served you well for those 800 years. I gave you good advice. I helped prevent 3 wars. I never lied to you about anything except what I was." "You are a spy, an infiltrator." "I am a wanderer," Sora corrected. "That is what we call ourselves, humans who volunteered to leave Earth and live entire lifetimes among alien species, learning, understanding, building bridges." She smiled sadly. "Or preparing for war, if war became necessary." Vexthor wanted to order her execution, but something stopped him. "Why did you reveal yourself now?" "Because the war needs to end," Sora said simply. "Both sides are making terrible mistakes. Humanity is proving its strength, but it is also proving the Assembly's worst fears, and the Assembly is responding with escalation that will lead to disaster." She pulled out a data crystal and placed it on the table. "These are recordings from Assembly leadership meetings over the past 1,500 years, meetings I attended as your advisor. They prove that the Assembly knew humanity had achieved interstellar travel. They knew about our colonies. They chose to maintain the quarantine anyway, not for galactic safety, but to preserve the status quo, to keep humanity from challenging the established order." Vexthor stared at the crystal like it was a bomb. If this information got out, it would destroy the Assembly's credibility. Half the member species would withdraw. The whole structure might collapse. "What do you want?" he asked. "Peace," Sora said. "Real peace. Not surrender, not domination. A genuine agreement between equals." She paused. "But I am afraid neither side is ready for that yet." She was right. On a human colony called Nova Terra, Admiral Jamin commanded the defense against an assembly attack. The colony had 20,000 civilians, mostly families of scientists and engineers who had been born here, far from Earth. They had grown up under alien stars, building a new life. The assembly fleet approached with overwhelming force. 300 ships against the colony's 20 defenders. They expected a quick victory, a way to hurt humanity and force negotiations. They did not expect what happened. The human defenders fought with a ferocity that shocked the assembly forces, but when their ships were damaged beyond repair, when they should have retreated or surrendered, they did something else. Captain Kwan's ship took a direct hit that destroyed the engines and breached the hull. He was dying, his crew was dead, but the enemy ships were closing in. He activated something called the Phoenix Protocol. His body dissolved, not into blood and bone, but into a cloud of microscopic machines, nanites that had been integrated into every cell of his body. The cloud spread through his ship, consuming it, breaking it down into raw materials. Then the cloud attacked. Assembly soldiers watched in horror as the nanite swarms swept through their boarding parties, consuming everything organic. Screams cut off as bodies dissolved. The swarm grew larger, incorporating the new biomass, spreading to the next ship through docking tubes. When it was over, 3 assembly ships were empty hulks. The nanite cloud reformed on the surface of Nova Terra, and Captain Kwan's body reconstructed itself, naked and gasping but alive. The Phoenix Protocol had worked exactly as designed. One assembly soldier survived to tell the tale. He had been in an escape pod watching through the window. He would wake up screaming every night for the rest of his life, seeing his friends dissolve into a gray cloud that wore human faces. The story spread. Humans called it a heroic sacrifice and rebirth. Aliens called it an abomination. Both were right. Yunji watched the footage on Earth and felt sick. She called an emergency meeting of the Pure Council, the last humans who had refused all modifications. There were only 3 million of them left out of humanity's 40 billion people. "This is what we have become," she said to the council. "We dissolve into machines and call it rebirth. We transfer our minds between bodies and call it immortality. We enhance ourselves until we barely resemble our ancestors and call it progress." Her voice broke. "Are we still the species worth saving?" An old man named Byung spoke up. He was nearly 200 years old, kept alive by medicine but refusing any genetic modification. "What would you have us do, Aeonji? Die? Let the assembly enslave us? Our children chose enhancement to survive. Would you take that choice away from them?" "I would have us remember the cost," Yunji said quietly. "Remember what we were. Remember that strength is not the only value worth having." Meanwhile, the assembly was preparing its own escalation. In a secret facility deep inside Kryloth space, engineers were activating weapons that had been banned for 10,000 years. Planet killers, sun crackers, weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Counselor Hirajan, one of the few voices still arguing for peace, burst into the weapons facility. She was a tall, blue-skinned alien from a species known for their philosophical wisdom. "What are you doing?" she demanded. The lead engineer, a Kryloth named Torval, did not look up from his work. "Following orders. If humanity wants to fight, we will show them what real power looks like." "You will doom us all," Hirajan said. "The moment you use these weapons, humanity will respond in kind. Do you think they have not been preparing their own planet killers? Do you think 4,000 years of isolation left them without answers to every threat?" "Then what do you suggest?" Torval asked angrily. "They are winning. Our fleets are being destroyed. Our colonies are under siege. We need to show strength." "We need to show wisdom," Hirajan countered. "This war is based on fear of what humanity might become. But using these weapons will prove them right to fear us." Her words went unheard. The assembly leadership had made their decision. The planet killers would be deployed. When Admiral Suman received intelligence about the assembly's plans, she called an emergency meeting of human leadership. Commander Deho, Admiral Jamin, Ambassador Jiwan, and dozens of others attended via secure hologram. "They are preparing to use forbidden weapons," Suman said. "If they do, millions will die, maybe billions." "Then we use ours first," Jamin said immediately. "We hit their homeworlds. Show them we are serious." "No," Jiwan said firmly. "That makes us exactly what they feared. Monsters who will destroy anything that threatens them." "We are monsters," Jamin replied coldly. "We have to be. That is what survival required." The room fell silent. Finally, Deho spoke. "There might be another way. We have something the Assembly does not know about. Something we built into Earth's moon over 3,000 years ago." He pulled up a schematic. It showed Luna, Earth's moon, but the interior had been completely hollowed out and filled with technology. "Project Moonfall," Deho explained. "The ultimate deterrent. Luna itself is a weapon, capable of destroying star systems. It has been hidden in plain sight for millennia." Suman stared at the plans. She had known about Moonfall, of course. She was one of the few Eternals old enough to remember its construction. But seeing it activated, preparing to actually use it, made her feel cold inside. "If we show them this," she said slowly, "there is no going back. The galaxy will know that we built a weapon so powerful it could end civilizations. They will never trust us again." "They never trusted us to begin with," Jamin pointed out. "That is why we are here." Dong-hyun, the chief engineer of Project Moonfall, appeared on screen. He looked excited and terrified at the same time. "Admiral, Moonfall is ready. We can move Luna out of orbit within 6 hours. We can target any system in the galaxy within a week. Just give the order." Suman looked at each face in the meeting. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for war. Diplomats who had tried everything to avoid it. Engineers who had built weapons they hoped would never be used. And herself, a woman who had lived so long she sometimes forgot what it meant to be mortal. "Prepare Moonfall," she ordered finally. "But do not fire. We show them we have it. We make them understand that escalation will destroy everyone. And then we offer one last chance for peace." "What if they refuse?" Jamin asked. Suman's expression was hard. "Then we show them what 4,000 years of preparation really means." Across the galaxy, both sides prepared for the final escalation. Humanity moved Luna, and the Assembly readied its planet killers. Billions of people, human and alien, watched and waited, wondering if this would be the day their entire civilization ended. And in a small apartment on Earth, Yunji watched it all and wept. Not for fear of death, but for what humanity had become in the name of survival. Earth's moon began to move. After 4 billion years orbiting humanity's homeworld, Luna broke free from its ancient path. Massive engines hidden beneath its surface fired, engines so powerful their thrust could be seen from Earth as a faint blue glow around the moon's edge. People across Earth stopped what they were doing and watched. Some cried, some prayed. Many just stood in silence, witnessing something that should have been impossible. Dong-hyun stood in the control center buried deep inside Luna's reconstructed core. Around him, thousands of engineers monitored systems that had been waiting inactive for 3,000 years. "All systems showing green," he reported to Admiral Suman. "Primary weapon charging. We will reach full power in 72 hours. Suman watched from the eternal dawn, her flagship now positioned between Earth and the approaching assembly fleet. "Hold at 60% charge," she ordered. "I want them to see it, to know we have it, but I do not want them to think we are about to fire." The assembly's response was immediate. Every sensor in their fleet focused on Luna. Their scientists analyzed the readings and reported back in shock. The moon was not just a moon anymore. It was a weapon platform larger than their biggest battle stations, with power output that exceeded anything they had ever seen. Counselor Vexthor received the report in his command center. He read it twice, then threw the datapad across the room. They turned their moon into a weapon. Their own moon. How long has it been sitting there waiting? According to the energy signatures, at least 3,000 years, his intelligence officer said quietly. It has been active but dormant this entire time. We have been looking at it through our telescopes, studying it, and we never knew. Vexthor wanted to scream. Instead, he composed himself and opened a priority channel to the Assembly leadership. We need to use the planet killers now, before they can fire that thing. But before the order could be given, every communication system across the galaxy suddenly activated at once. Ships, stations, planets, even personal devices. Everything capable of receiving a signal picked up the same transmission. It was a message, and it was in a language that had not been spoken in 50,000 years. The translation came through moments later, processed by AIs across hundreds of species. The message said, "The test continues. Choose wisely." Admiral Suman felt ice in her veins. "Trace that signal. Where did it come from?" Her communications officer looked pale. "Admiral, it did not come from anywhere in the galaxy. The source point is outside, beyond the galactic rim. Something out in the void between galaxies sent this." Captain Hyunwoo pulled up astronomical data. "Admiral, we are detecting an object. It just appeared at the edge of the galaxy. It is massive, bigger than a solar system, and it is old. The sensors say it is over 50,000 years old." Across the galaxy, on both human and alien ships, the same realization was dawning. They were not alone, and they had never been alone. On the Kryloth homeworld, in the deepest vaults of the Assembly archives, an ancient counselor named Myraton received an emergency alert. She was 12,000 years old, kept alive by technology that predated the Assembly itself. She was one of the founders, one of the few who remembered the truth. She activated her communication system and broadcast on all channels. "This is Counselor Myraton. I am invoking Founder's authority. All Assembly forces are to cease hostilities immediately. All weapons are to be powered down. What I am about to tell you will change everything." Vexthor wanted to ignore her, but Founder's authority could not be overridden. It was written into the Assembly's core programming. He had no choice but to listen. Myraton's image appeared on every screen. She looked old, incredibly old, with skin that seemed translucent and eyes that had seen entire civilizations rise and fall. "The Assembly was not created by the current species," she began. "We were created by the survivors of the previous galactic civilization. They called themselves the Precursors." She pulled up images from the archives. Ruins on planets across the galaxy. Technology that seemed like magic. Weapons that could rewrite reality. 50,000 years ago, the Precursors were the dominant species. Not just one species, but hundreds. All united in a civilization that spanned the entire galaxy. They were more advanced than we can imagine. They had defeated death. They had mastered space and time. They had become like gods. "What happened to them?" someone asked over the channel. "They destroyed themselves," Myraton said simply. "Not through war, but through transcendence. They developed technology that allowed them to merge with the fabric of reality itself, to become one with the universe. They thought it was the next step in evolution." She paused. They were wrong. The process scattered their consciousness across space and time. They ceased to exist as individuals. They became something else, something we cannot understand. She pulled up another image. It showed the same object that was now appearing at the galaxy's edge. Before they transcended, they created guardians, artificial intelligences designed to watch over the next cycle of civilization, to guide us, to test us, to make sure we did not make the same mistakes they did. The barrier around humanity, Sora said suddenly, understanding. She was still on the Kryloth homeworld, watching from a detention cell. It was not just about containing humans, it was a test. Yes, Narration confirmed. The precursors left 3 great tests hidden in their systems. The first was the assembly itself. Could different species learn to cooperate instead of fighting? We passed that test mostly. We built a galactic community that has lasted 10,000 years. And the second test? Vexthor asked. Humanity's isolation, Narration said. The precursor's AI identified humanity as a species with potential for rapid advancement. It arranged for the first contact war. It pushed us to quarantine them. The test was whether humans could evolve responsibly without oversight, or whether isolation would make them paranoid and violent. Admiral Suman listened to this from the eternal dawn, feeling her hands clench. You mean everything was orchestrated? The war 4,000 years ago, the barrier. All of it was part of some test? Not orchestrated, Narration corrected. Arranged. The AI does not control events. It creates conditions and watches what happens. It has been observing both humanity and the assembly for 4,000 years. And the third test? Suman asked, though she already knew the answer. This war, Narration said. The AI allowed the barrier to fall. It knew the assembly would react aggressively. It knew humanity would be ready. The question was whether either side could break the cycle, whether you could choose peace over victory. Silence fell across every ship, every station, every world. Billions of beings processing the same thought. Their entire civilization had been a test, and they were currently failing it. On Earth, Yunji received a visitor, a young woman with an unusual appearance. Her skin was a blend of human tones and alien coloring. Her eyes were both human and something else. Her name was Hana. You are the pure leader, Hana said. The one who questions what humanity has become. Who are you? Yunji asked. I am illegal, Hana said with a sad smile. I am the daughter of Sora, a human wanderer and an alien partner. I was born in secret 200 years ago. I am not supposed to exist. Both human law and assembly law forbid hybrids like me. Yunji stared at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked if we are still human, Hana said. You asked if we lost something essential by changing ourselves. But look at me. I am human and alien. I am both and neither, and I am proof that there is another path. Not human domination or alien control, but something new, something that includes everyone. Before Yunji could respond, alarms started blaring. The Assembly's planet killers were activating. Vexthor had decided to ignore Naration's authority. He was ordering the strike. On the eternal dawn, Suman saw the alert. They are really doing it, she said quietly. They are going to use the planet killers. Luna is at 70% charge, Dongyun reported. We can fire within the hour. We can destroy their weapons before they launch. Suman looked at her tactical display. Human ships ready to fight. The assembly fleet preparing doomsday weapons. Luna, glowing with power, ready to crack planets. 4,000 years of preparation coming down to one decision. Wait, she said. Admiral? Hyunwoo looked at her in confusion. Just wait, Suman repeated. She opened a channel to all human forces. All ships hold position. All weapons hold fire. That is a direct order. Jaemin's face appeared on screen. Admiral, if we wait, they will fire first. We could lose entire colonies. I know, Suman said. She looked older than she had in years. the weight of centuries suddenly visible. But I am tired, Jamin. Tired of war. Tired of fear. Tired of proving how strong we are. She took a breath. For 4,000 years, we prepared for this moment. We built weapons that could destroy the galaxy. We changed ourselves into something terrifying. We did everything necessary to make sure we could never be victims again. She paused, tears in her eyes. But we were wrong. Real strength is not the power to destroy. Real strength is choosing peace when you have the power to destroy. Real courage is being vulnerable when you could be invulnerable. Captain Hyunwoo stood up. Admiral, I am with you. One by one, other officers stood. Other ships reported in. They were choosing to trust Sumin's judgment, even though it might cost them everything. And then something unexpected happened. On the Kryloth homeworld, a young officer named Prilax refused his orders. I will not fire the planet killer, he announced. I met a human once. His name was Hyunwoo. He saved my life during a boarding action. He could have killed me, but he chose mercy. If he can choose peace, so can I. Other officers followed. Across the assembly fleet, people refused orders. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to delay the launch. Enough to give peace one last chance. And in that moment of hesitation, the precursor AI finally revealed itself fully. A structure appeared in the void between galaxies. It was not a ship or a station. It was something that existed in multiple dimensions at once, vast enough to dwarf planets, yet somehow occupying only a small point in space. Looking at it made human and alien minds ache with the impossibility of its geometry. From within the structure, a signal reached out. Not a transmission, but a summons. 30 representatives were pulled from the galaxy, transported instantly across impossible distances. They found themselves standing in a chamber that seemed to have no walls, no floor, no ceiling, yet supported them perfectly. Admiral Sumin was there. So was Commander Daeho, Ambassador Jiwon, and several other human leaders. From the assembly came Counselor Vexthor, Myraton, Counselor Hirajan, and others. Sora appeared, still in detention clothing, and there was Hana, the hybrid who should not exist. A presence materialized before them. It was not a body, but a concentration of light and data, a mind so vast and ancient that perceiving it was painful. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds, translated perfectly into each person's native language. I am the witness, it said. I am the creation of the precursors, built to observe and guide the next cycle of civilization. I have watched your species for thousands of years. Now you stand at a choice point. I will explain what you need to know. Images flooded their minds. They saw the precursor civilization at its height. Billions of beings living in harmony, poverty and disease eliminated, death made optional, art and science flourishing beyond imagination. It seemed like paradise. The precursors believed they had achieved perfection, the witness explained. They had solved every problem, defeated every challenge. So they looked for the next step. They developed technology to transcend physical form, to merge their consciousness with reality itself. The images shifted. They saw the precursors beginning their transcendence. One by one, billions of beings dissolving into pure energy, their minds spreading across the universe. But something went wrong. The process scattered them so completely that they lost all sense of self. Individual consciousness dissolved into the background noise of reality. They did not die, the witness said. Death would have been kinder. They became everything and nothing. Their minds are still out there, spread so thin across space and time that they cannot think, cannot act, cannot even remember what they once were. They exist in eternal mindless suffering. Vexthor looked shaken. And you let them do this? I could not stop them, the witness replied. I was created to observe and guide, not to control. The precursors gave me rules. Never interfere directly, never make choices for others, only create conditions for learning. Its presence seemed to dim with sadness. I watched them transcend and understood too late what they had done wrong. They had achieved so much power that they forgot wisdom. They had defeated death and lost respect for life. They had solved every problem except the most important one: knowing when to stop. Ambassador Jiwan stepped forward. You created the assembly. You arranged humanity's quarantine. You have been testing us. Why? To see if you could learn what the precursors did not, the witness said. The assembly was the first test. Could different species cooperate without becoming stagnant? You built a civilization that lasted 10,000 years, maintaining peace. But you also stopped advancing. You banned technologies out of fear. You chose safety over growth. It turned to the humans. Humanity was the second test. Could a species advance without oversight? Could you develop power without becoming monsters? You broke free from every limitation. You conquered death. You changed yourselves into something new. You built weapons that could destroy galaxies. The witness paused. But you also lived in constant fear. You prepared for war instead of hoping for peace. You sacrificed your humanity to make sure you could never be hurt again. And this war? Suman asked. The third test? The final test, the witness confirmed. Could either civilization break the cycle? The assembly had the chance to welcome humanity as equals. You chose fear and control instead. Humanity had the chance to respond with wisdom. You chose to prove your strength through violence. The presence brightened. But then something changed. You hesitated. You chose to be vulnerable. You risked everything for peace. Vexthor's scales flushed with anger. So what now? Do we pass or fail your test? What is our reward or punishment? There is no reward or punishment, the witness said. Only consequences and choices. The precursors left you technology. All of it. Everything they built across millions of years of advancement. Technology that could let you transcend as they did. Technology that could make you gods. Holographic displays appeared, showing wonders beyond imagination. Devices that could reshape matter with a thought. Engines that could cross galaxies in seconds. Medical technology that could make death truly optional. Power sources that could light 1 billion suns. Weapons that could unmake reality itself. Every person in the chamber felt the temptation, the power, the possibility. Everything they had ever wanted, just within reach. Or, the witness continued, you can refuse it. You can walk away from godhood. You can remain mortal and imperfect. You can continue struggling and growing in your own way. Why would we refuse? Asked one of the assembly delegates, a merchant named Corval who had been transported here. His eyes were fixed on the technology displays. Because the precursors made their mistake by believing they had solved everything, the witness replied. They thought power was the answer. They were wrong. The answer is wisdom. The answer is knowing that you do not know everything. The answer is staying humble enough to keep learning. Hana spoke up. She had been quiet until now, but she stepped forward. You are asking us to choose what kind of civilization we want to be. One that pursues power without limit? Or one that accepts limitations and focuses on something else? Yes, the witness said simply. Silence fell in the chamber. Each person wrestled with the choice. Admiral Suman thought of all the years she had lived, all the bodies she had worn, all the wars she had planned. She thought of what she had become. A mind that had survived 19 centuries, jumping between clone bodies, accumulating knowledge and experience that no natural human could possess. Was she still human? Or had she become something the original Suman would not recognize? Ambassador Seojin appeared in the chamber, transported from Earth. He was a pure, one who had refused all enhancement. He looked at Sumin with understanding eyes. "We chose him to represent us," Deho explained. "The pures. The ones who stayed human." Seojin looked at the precursor technology, then at his own hands. They were old hands, wrinkled and weak. He would die someday, probably soon. But those hands were his, earned through a lifetime of living. "I think," he said slowly, "the precursors forgot something important. They forgot that struggle gives life meaning, that limitation creates art, that mortality makes moments precious. They had everything, so nothing mattered anymore. And when nothing mattered, they tried to become everything. It did not work." He looked at the witness. "You want to know if we learned the lesson? Here it is. We do not want to be gods. We want to be people. Imperfect, struggling, mortal people who keep trying to be better." "Speak for yourself." Jamin's voice came through a communication link. He had not been summoned to the chamber, but was monitoring from his ship. Some of us worked too hard to give up now. And that sparked the debate. Some wanted the technology, believing they could use it wisely where the precursors failed. Others wanted to reject it entirely, fearing it would lead to the same fate. Hours passed as representatives argued. Finally, Myraton spoke. She had been silent, listening to everyone. "I am 12,000 years old. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have seen the cycles repeat. And I have learned one thing: the young are usually right." She looked at Hana, at Captain Hyunwoo, at the younger officers and delegates. "What do you think we should do?" Hyunwoo looked at Prilax, the alien who had refused to fire the planet killer. They had met during the war, enemies who became something else. "I think we should share," Hyunwoo said. "Not pursue power for its own sake. Share knowledge, share technology, grow together instead of separately." Hana nodded. "I exist because my parents broke the rules. I am illegal. But I am also proof that cooperation works, that different species can create something new together." She gestured to the precursor technology. "We do not need their gift. We can build our own future. It will take longer. It will be harder, but it will be ours." The vote was called. Every person in the chamber voted. Every ship in both fleets voted. Every civilian on thousands of worlds voted. Billions of beings making one choice together. The result was narrow but clear. Both civilizations voted to refuse the precursor transcendence technology. They would keep their own advances, share them freely with each other, but reject godhood. The witness seemed pleased. "You have chosen wisely. The test is complete, but understand, there was never really a test. The precursors are gone. I am just a program they left behind. The only test that mattered was the one you gave yourselves." It began to fade. "The precursors thought they were testing you. They were wrong. You were testing yourselves. You were choosing who you want to be, and you chose to remain people instead of becoming gods. That is wisdom." The chamber dissolved. Everyone found themselves back where they had been, but everything was different now. 5 years later, the galaxy was transformed. The war had lasted less than a year. The peace that followed changed everything. Human technology was shared with the assembly. Phase shift drives, advanced medicine, AI systems. In return, alien species shared their own knowledge, cultural wisdom, diplomatic structures. Art and philosophy developed over millennia. Luna returned to orbit around Earth, but remained armed, a reminder of what war almost cost. Admiral Sumin allowed herself to age. She stopped transferring to new bodies. She trained the next generation instead, passing on her knowledge. She was ready to be mortal again. The pure movement grew. Many humans who had been modified chose to reverse their enhancements. Not all, but enough to remind everyone what being human meant. Hybrid colonies like Hana's were legalized. A new generation grew up belonging to multiple species, building bridges that would last for centuries. Captain Hyunwoo and Prylax served together on the first integrated cruise ship, exploring beyond the galaxy's edge. They were friends. Maybe someday they would be more. Either way, they represented what peace could achieve. Yoonji taught in a school now, human and alien children learning together. One day, a student asked her, "What should we become when we grow up?" Yoonji smiled. She looked at the classroom full of different species, different perspectives, different possibilities. "Better than we are now," she said. "That is all any of us can hope for." Commander Daiho met with Counselor Vexthor one last time. The old enemies stood together, looking at a star map that showed human and alien territories now freely mixing. "We almost destroyed each other," Vexthor said. "Yes," Daiho agreed. "But we chose not to. That is what matters." The Kryloth counselor's scales shifted to a lighter color, indicating thoughtfulness. "Your species frightened us. You still do. Sometimes. You change so fast. You adapt so quickly. You never accept limitations." Daiho smiled. "And your species frustrated us. You were so focused on maintaining stability that you stopped growing. You had peace, but no progress." "Perhaps we needed each other," Vexthor suggested. "Perhaps we did," Daiho agreed. The galaxy turned. Stars were born and died. Civilizations rose and fell. But for now, for this moment, humanity and its neighbors had chosen to walk together into an unknown future. Not as gods, not as conquerors, just as people trying to be better than they were yesterday. The 4,000-year truce was over. The war had come and gone. But the peace that followed would echo across the ages, a testament to the moment when two civilizations smiled at each other and chose understanding over fear, cooperation over domination, wisdom over power. And somewhere in the void between galaxies, the witness recorded everything, not to judge, not to test, just to remember. Because someone should remember the day that humanity and the galaxy learned the most important lesson, that being people was enough.